Recognize the ranking member, Mr. Morelle, for purposes of asking questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things I just point out. I do want to correct the record. I believe EAC commissioners were here in May of 2019 on the question of election security, not 2011. So I just wanted to make sure I made that point. And I must admit, as much as I appreciate you holding up the Joe Biden for President sign, in fact, you could hold it up behind me, Mr. Chairman, I do want to just take a moment. I only have 5 minutes, but I do want to, first of all, submit, with unanimous consent, like to submit a copy of the Inspector General's actual report on the issue that's being talked about. It's dated February 9th, 2022, and it comes from Inspector General Schlitz, and I just want to, I'll read at least, well, a couple of things I do want to note since we're going to spend some time here apparently talking about this. First of all, the contract was not sole sourced. It says that in the Inspector General's report. It actually, a number of firms bid on the work, and SKDK was one of the vendors chosen. But as it relates to the conclusions of the Inspector General, first of all, in the first part, federal funds were not used for registration drives. California launched a public education campaign called Vote Safe California. It indicates that nothing that SKDK, I'm going to get that right, did not violate anything in that regard, nor did the contract. And as it relates to get out the vote, it said the EAC grant funds for messages educating a specific population about safety voting during the population is allowed. Similarly, EAC said an advertisement directing the public to California's voting website is allowable because the website has additional educational information on how to vote safely or procedures for voting. So we found no specific activities or messaging that met the definition of get out the vote. And it concludes, and this is the important part, I would think, the operative part, the conclusion by the Inspector General is based on the evidence. California Secretary of State Office executed the SKDK contract in accordance with EAC guidelines. Funds were not used for unallowable costs, such as registration drives or activities meeting the definition of get out the vote. So I just want to, the record reflect, we can talk about this, I suppose, all day long, but the actual Inspector General who you're referring to basically concluded that they had followed all the rules California had, and there's no there. So I want to just make sure that enters in the record with
without objection,
unanimous consent. Using just my last few minutes, perhaps Commissioner Hicks, our elections environment is constantly changing. Election administrators deal with ever-evolving cybersecurity threats and the rapid spread of mis and disinformation. We need to consider the physical safety of election workers and now must respond to an increasing number of records requests, analysis requests, and respond to the threat AI may pose to us all, and on top of that, actually run elections. Could you please comment on how increased and reliable funding could alleviate some of this significant burden?
Thank you, Congressman, for that question. Increased funding, when we go to election offices, the number one thing they ask for is additional funding. It's usually one or two people in the office that is trying to do 9 different jobs in an office. And so they are looking to, the chairman had asked a little bit earlier, have we increased our authority? We haven't increased our authority, but the scope of our jobs have increased in terms of cybersecurity issues that no one thought of in 2003 or in 2002 when HAVA was enacted, but also the fact that we are also fighting nation states in terms of mis and disinformation. And it's not really feasible to ask a city clerk in a small town to fight against a superpower for mis and disinformation when the U.S. government should be doing that. So we have worked with our partners, with the federal government, that being the DHS. When elections were elevated to critical infrastructure, we were able to do a lot more things in that sort of realm. But I do believe that with increased funding and increased responsibility, we will have to be able to do that so that votes can be counted accurately.
Very good. I had a number of other questions, but my time is going to come to an end. But before I do that, Mr. Chairman, I also ask unanimous consent that the Bren Center's June 2023 voting laws roundup, which found between January 1 and May 29th, at least 11 states have enacted 13 restrictive laws, including 7 that curb access to mail voting, and an onerous law in Florida, which would significantly reduce voter drives in advance of the 2024 election.
Without objection.
Thank you. Ms. Chair, I yield back.